G'day, I'm Ali Amo, and this is the Lease on Life podcast. Today I have with me Faith Streng from the US. Where are you coming to us from specifically?
Los Angeles.
LA. All right, I'm from Sydney, Australia.
Love it.
Today we're getting into all things energy, and as I promised, we're going to start with the outside the box experiences. So I'm going to ask you, Faith, what's your understanding of energy?
My understanding of energy is the milliparticles beyond the range of the human eye that create and make up everything we see, experience, breathe, think, and feel.
Wow. I love where you went with that. I think that's my favorite answer so far, and I don't think it's going to be able to be topped if I'm real with you. What's your experience of energy to come to that understanding? This is the juicy stuff.
I really started to perceive energy in a new way when I started understanding the connection between my feelings and my external experiences.
Okay, yep. Dive deeper into that for a minute.
When I started to understand that my feelings had a frequency, then I started to understand how I was able to actually harness and positively manipulate energy to my benefit and the benefit of the collective. Because I could feel it in my body, I knew it was real.
Was this in your younger years, or was this something you explored later on in life?
This would have been in my reawakening. I am a third generation psychic healer, and I was raised with a lot of really what many would consider out there spiritual concepts. But it was always in the back of my mind until I came back around to it in my late 20s and early 30s.
How do you actually experience energy? Is it something when you come into any kind of contact, whether that's physical, digital, even just audio, with
Mhm.
somebody, you get a sense of things? Do you see things? How does it actually manifest for you for your
Mhm.
work?
Mhm.
Purpose?
So, yes, for me, whether I'm in person with someone or it's a virtual session, I am able to tune into their field. Anybody who has experience with energy healing, Reiki particularly, one of the tenets of Reiki is being able to, of course, receive and facilitate channel healing beyond time and space. So that's the field in which I work. And it started as understanding that I was feeling things which we understand as clairsentience. I can feel things in my body when there's something coming through for someone else or for myself. And then as I started to focus on that, and now in my sessions, I also see things and I also hear things. And sometimes I just know things. So clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, and claircognizance is how the information comes to me.
I'm a Reiki master myself, and I'm working with clairvoyance. I'm still I wouldn't say I'm new to it. It's been many years, but I'm still trying to understand how it is that information comes to me, because sometimes it's like a hearing, like I hear it in a sentence, but for the most part, it's a feeling thing, especially when I was a child. It was actually a lot clearer for me to understand, or not even understand, to just accept what is, because things would just be sort of said to me in a way, but I felt it. It wasn't like I was here. You know what I mean? You understand what I'm saying without me having to go, because it really confuses me to try and explain the experience itself. But I would just
Mhm.
say things, and it would be misjudged at the time because people don't have, they don't understand where this is coming from and why you would say that. And then it came true later, if that makes sense. But even now, I was thinking about it yesterday, knowing that I was going to speak to you. How would I actually classify the experience? It's hard for me to explain, but I'm not doing this as a permanent work thing. This is just something that comes across when I meet people, when I speak to people. That's me personally. But is it all just messages that you receive that you share, or do you use other tools to assist you?
I, do sometimes use a pendulum still. That's the kind of my background is using a pendulum and these channeled charts, which are called spiritual response therapy, which I sometimes use in my work. And occasionally I pull cards, but it's pretty much just what I'm receiving.
So the pendulums, isn't that yes, no answers? Is that right?
It can be. I use it a little bit differently than that. I will lay out a 0 to 100% scale in a half circle shape so that you can ask the likelihood of something being for your highest good. Because timelines are always changing, that just using a pendulum for a yes or no question can give you some wonky information.
Well, it's definitive at the time, but it doesn't take into account the chances of things going a different way because you choose different paths all the time. I've never actually heard of a pendulum being used that way, and that is not only creative, that's quite genius when you think about it, because the percentage would take into account the likelihood of you continuing down the path that you're on now to come to that experience as part of your timeline.
Yes.
The thing that pricked my ears the most would definitely be when you said the chart that you use. Is this something that's been passed down generations?
This is something you can purchase.
Oh,
It's not only for my family. No, this is out there. This is a modality that is available for anyone to learn if they would like.
what's on the chart?
There are 31 charts. And
Oh,
this idea of using a pendulum with the percentage comes from this information, although I'm sure there's other people who've done it too. And the main purpose of the charts is to identify and clear past life trauma. So you would find out where an experience happened on Earth or in a different dimension, who you were, if you were a mother, a father, a friend, a teacher, anyone from this life who was there with you, who had the perception of being harmed, and then you would clear away the false beliefs that are remaining as a result of that experience, feelings of low self-esteem, toxic shame, unworthiness. And then the following chart is the positive aspects of your soul that are being activated through the clearing of what's no longer serving you. So you would activate things like self-esteem, forgiveness, self-love, love of life, laughter, kindness. And that's the basis of the work. But then there are a lot of other charts that get into things that I still don't completely understand, things that talk about the nine Godhead councils and light cord, discordant energy, and all of these other things that when they come up, I just say, thank you, angel babies. We know the healing is happening. We don't really have to understand this on a human level.
the clearing that you talked about reminds me of, I think it's called Honsha Zeshonen. Are you
Mm,
familiar with Reiki yourself? You do Reiki
mhm,
or no?
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
I don't know if I said that right, but that big clearing situation when I'd only just finished my, it's not called an initiation. What are they called?
Attunements.
Yeah, I just finished my third attunement. So technically I was a Reiki master and I was practicing it everywhere I went from the start. I even did it on a dog on a beach that I found.
Mhm,
But I had a family friend's father who was on his deathbed. And for some reason, my presence doing Reiki was the only thing that sort of gave him relief. And he sort of asked for like the Big Bang situation. I'm like, all right, I'll do what I can. Actually, I'd love to get your opinion on this. I asked everyone, tried to start doing it with people there, but it's hard to tune in and tune out when that happened. So I asked everyone to leave, but his son wouldn't leave. And he was sort of over his head, but he was almost touching him. And he kept saying, I'm just channeling love and light. And I said, can you please get out? This is not something I think you should be present for. I'm just channeling love and light. And I'm like, okay. So I did it, and I'll never forget. I don't know, he must have seen some things, because the idea, for those that don't know, is this is, I think it's 25 different movements, but it clears the past, the present, and the future. Correct me if I'm wrong or if I've missed something, hey?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and he started crying with, he had his eyes closed the whole time, and he started crying, and he just said, "I'm so sorry." And I thought, okay, so there's like a forgiveness thing happening there. That's probably a good thing. And from my understanding, with my experience with him, but also from his family's experience with him, the son that was present for that started behaving quite, wouldn't say unusually, but very negatively. Considering his father was dying and then died, how his behavior was very, yeah. But that sort of made me question the possibility of something like an energy transference or something, because he was present and in his space in a thing like that. Would you have any understanding of what may have happened?
Mm, what's coming to me is that, mm, in that kind of open space, there certainly could be potential for some kind of energy transference or entity to enter the space, but it's more likely that that was, like you said, something that was a little beyond what he had the capacity for at that time. And it probably likely triggered some past life things and even current trauma. We know that it can be very uncomfortable to receive the light, and it can be very uncomfortable to receive good and beauty and softness and ease, which is why sometimes when you do receive it from a guide or a person, people start to cry because it's so overwhelming to them. And being with someone in that transition, which is such a beautiful, holy, and sacred experience, to also have someone who is there channeling Reiki at that time, that was a very, very high frequency place at that time. And so I can't really know without knowing the person or knowing a little bit more about the experience, but likely there could have been some kind of transference, but more likely it was such a profoundly spiritual experience, almost like having when people talk about having their kundalini awakened and they're not ready for it.
Mm. But do you agree that it was probably not the best idea to have someone present while you do that kind of sequence, specifically with Reiki?
Mm, I don't know
Directing?
if I don't know if that's necessarily true. It's not something that I have a lot of experience with. I would think that anybody who wanted to be a part of that ceremony from the highest loving place would be of benefit and would have medicine to add to that experience. But if it's also someone who is not in a grounded place, then it could be harmful for them.
Based on what happened after the fact, that wouldn't surprise me at all. But yeah, that was my first experience as a Reiki master, and it was just very, very interesting. And to feel what all the medications did in his brain,
Mm,
um, considering all of the medications he was on to not feel pain and how much pain he was in, I realized the power of Reiki myself in
mm,
knowing that it was able to stop the pain when, as
mm,
soon as he wanted me there daily, basically,
mm,
because nothing was working. It doesn't matter how much morphine you get, that told me something. Speaking of
mhm.
which, have you heard the study that was done on Reiki energy? They wanted to see how quick the transference was of the healing energy from one body to another. Did you hear about this?
Mm, mm-mm, mm-mm,
So, this is something I was told about many years ago, and I haven't actually looked up the study myself, but it truly makes sense. Do you get hot? Do you feel the heat in your hands
mhm,
immediately? Like, I will, if I get activated and I'm around a bunch of people or whatever, and I'm not doing anything with it, I will full just break out into this massive sweat, like it doesn't know where to go, but it needs to go. So I start like
mhm,
looking like, who is the person who needs this? But yeah, they tried to see like the speed of contact between the energy from one person to the other. It was that quick. It was almost like instantaneous that our tools weren't actually able to track it, I think.
Mm,
Yeah, I
mhm,
found that really interesting.
mhm,
Something that I know a friend of mine would love to ask someone of your giftedness,
mm,
because you don't just necessarily get the good stuff, right? When you get information about someone's, whether it's past, present, future stuff, you get the good, the bad, and the ugly, right?
mhm, mhm.
You filter what you say to only sort of focus on the good, or how do you handle the negative stuff, the perceived negative stuff that you get?
Mm, when I get, let's say, a really traumatic download from a past life, like
Mhm.
really traumatic, I don't feel the need to go into detail. I don't have to. I can use general terms to explain what I'm seeing. And sometimes I don't even see the whole thing. Sometimes spirit is just like, you don't need to know anything else that happened. Because in my particular work, nothing ever comes through for me that ever makes people afraid, because that's just not how I work. A client leaving my session afraid is pointless. We're here to dispel the fear. We're here to transmute the fear. We're here to empower ourselves beyond the fear. So when something comes through, it needs to be expressed, but again, not all the details. And not all psychics work like that. I have other friends who, you know, they'll say something and I'll be like, I don't know if you needed to like tell her all that, but everybody works in different ways, right?
Yeah.
Now, if something is coming through, future predictions come through sometimes in my sessions when timelines are really set. But
Mm.
because timelines are always shifting, that's not the realm I work in the most. I've never had something come through for someone where I was like, you need to do XYZ or something really bad is going to happen. Or I know that this bad thing is going to happen to you. And I'm sure that's a part of my belief system and how I channel and the people who come to me. But we always have a choice, right? Because anything that's coming through me is for someone's highest good. So I can let someone know this person you're asking me about does not have your best intentions in mind. I can tell people that if you continue going in the way that you're going at the pace you're working, you're going to get sick, because we all know that. But
Mm.
my realm is not with the future predictions, and I don't avoid telling people things. It just things like that don't seem to come through for me.
So you're telling me from what you've said that while you're communicating with someone, you get sort of flashes of past lives. Is that right?
Yes, that's the main tenet of my work is past life healing.
Wow. I've never known anyone to do that in that capacity. Usually, everyone that I've seen myself spoken to or am familiar with is it's either something that it's like while they're doing like a healing with you and they're just tuned in, that's sort of
Mm.
the main modality. I don't know what the word is, but yeah, that they get, or they have to take you through a session with a meditation sort of thing and then see what comes out of you. So that's a very rare gift to have.
I it seems like not a lot of people do it. I do see more and
Mm.
more people working in the Akashic records. I don't necessarily know what that means for everyone, but because I've been working in this space since I was 5 years old and receiving healing from my grandmother and my mother, I've done a lot of healing in this lifetime that has allowed some of my own gifts to be revealed, and then I get to help other people understand what their specific gifts are that I'm in awe of, but I have the ability to help clear away the layers that are getting in their way to help them align with their own unique magic. But it is different how I work and what I do and the information that gets channeled.
I've also never met somebody who grew up with this sort of stuff in their childhood, not just hearing about it, but experiencing it. What kind of things happened in your childhood that stay with you? Because there would have been some things that you found quite monumental in your lifetime, and it also would have changed the trajectory of your life, having this stuff introduced to you and exposed to you throughout your childhood as well. It would change your perspective on a lot of things as well.
Yes. I grew up in a really small town, so my mom said, "Maybe don't really talk about this with anyone." And it wasn't until I went to a boarding school for high school to study theater. So I was around some more open-minded people, and when I started talking about it, it was really exciting to meet these other people who are really interested in it, and it was through friends who then encouraged me to try it myself that I picked up the pendulum and started doing this work for myself and the people in my life. I was exposed to a lot of those Hay House authors at a very young age. I started reading Wayne Dyer and Eckhart Tolle and Marianne Williamson when I was 14, 15 years old. I meditated for the first time when I was 14, had a really intense and actually quite scary experience with it. So I didn't come back around to meditating till many years later. What it really fostered in me was this understanding that I could have it all, that happiness was the goal, and that I should live a life of abundance, ease, and fun. It was possible. I had to take a really, for as it is for most of us, a real sideways route to come back around to that understanding when I stopped resisting the path that I thought was for me. But I always knew at a very deep level I was supposed to be happy. But it also set up for me this understanding that I think a lot of healers go through of I should be able to heal my body. I should be able to heal myself. And my journey has involved a lot of health challenges, and there was a deep time of depression and anger and feelings of separation, feeling like a failure that I couldn't do that for myself. And then being able to come around to, well, I'm not supposed to. I'm not an ascended master. I need other people. We need other healers. We need interpersonal connections. We're not designed to do it on our own. And that all of these different modalities, techniques, medicines have their correct place for us. So being able to be raised with what I was raised with and then combine it with life experience so that I could get a more grounded perspective on the things that I was raised with, that has proved to be a pretty winning combination now.
Absolutely. And I think you could have five people that know each other that all share the same gift, but it's nuanced from each individual's unique life experiences. And it's like everybody's got their own, I don't like the word niche, but you know what I'm saying? It's like they've got their avenue that's like they are the gold standard in that. And we all give and add to each other in doing that and receive things that we can't do for ourselves. And together, from what you're saying, you're seeing it as like a personal and planetary expansion when we tap into these gifts and work in a more cooperative environment to support each other's growth and nurture each other's healing and our best selves and best lives to come into existence in this life, in this moment. So I thank you so much for your contribution to humanity. We need more people like you. I love talking to people like you. It makes me so happy. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with an audience who might be a little bit, because some people are not afraid, but they're a bit like, about talking to someone with gifts or seeing someone with gifts, for those who are a little bit averse to it altogether? Do you think that there's something that might help open the door?
Mm, well, it really comes back to how you started the episode, which is everything's energy.
Mm,
And we understand we know modern science tells us that the eye does not perceive everything that's around us. We know that dogs can hear things that we can't hear. And so, intuitives, psychics, mediums, empaths, being an empath is just picking up on energy. And as you are tuning into these more subtle energies that we now know are around all of us, the energy of a tree, of the clouds, of a certain belonging that you have, as you open yourself up to just exploring, to playing is what it's really about, life just becomes a lot more fun. So when you take away the pressure of talking to dead people or seeing your past lives, and instead you just open up to the energy that's beyond you because it sounds more fun, then you're starting to tiptoe into a very different frequency that has the potential to bring you a lot of joy and healing. That's what I would say.
Absolutely. I didn't get into it with you, but I created something. Have you ever heard the web of life as a concept?
Mm, maybe.
I'm a teacher by trade, so I created a visual philosophy and it looks like a spider's web and it's the
Mm,
8 fundamental elements of life. And the last strand that I'm covering before I start going back around again is called the power strand and it's science and energy. So
mhm,
funny that you brought a lot of science into it as well. I was thinking when you were saying about the dogs hearing and it's the cats seeing
mhm,
what they
mhm,
see that we can't, or even children.
mhm,
When I was a teacher, I had so many parents tell me stories about their child having not imaginary friends, but there was always someone that they'd be playing with, or there was somebody like up in the corner that they were talking to. All of these things that were being witnessed at the time that can't be explained, that sort of faded off eventually as the child grew up. There's very little scientific studies being conducted in this realm, but it is starting. You're familiar with Daryl Anchor?
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm,
They recently did studies on him while he was channeling to
mhm,
understand what's happening, and areas of the brain were being activated in while he was awake, but it just didn't make sense to them because, well, it makes sense to everybody else, but it just
mhm,
doesn't make sense. So I think we're starting to go down that, I suppose, timeline where humanity's starting to explore that which has been deemed words like occult and witchcraft and all those sorts of things. Yeah, so it's going to be an interesting couple of decades we have ahead of us, but I'm certainly excited about it and I'm excited for the work that you do with people. If there is someone who'd like to get in touch because you work globally, I'm sure,
mhm, mhm.
how can they get in touch with you?
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Faith Streng. You can connect with me on LinkedIn and YouTube and Threads. And my website is faithstrenghealing.com.
And so that you get that right, faith is like the regular spelling of faith. Streng looks like strong, but with an E instead of the O, because remember, this girl's all about the energy. And I'll get you to send me some links so I can put them in the show notes if that's okay.
I would love that. Thank you. Beautiful.
Right, thanks for being here with us for this app. New ones will come out to you every other Thursday. I'm sure you join me in thanking Faith for being here with us and for sharing so much love, light, energy, information, and helping humanity like she does. Thank you so much, honey. It was absolutely lovely to meet you, and I hope to have you on another time, sometime in the future.
Thank you. I would love that. It's been such a joy. Thank you for your platform.
No worries. Well, you take it easy, people, and I'll see you soon.